Hi all. So I'm going to go through the new A1500 Plus case, but I thought you might like to see the original. So here's the original that we shipped a long time ago. Some people find this boring because it's old history. You can see the back of it. It's actually really nice. It's nice steel construction. Notice how it's still white, not gone yellow. That's because it's painted, not plastic. So this is solid steel, and I used to demonstrate this by standing on it. Anyway, that's the outside. Now I'll open it up. Now, as you can see, it's quite busy inside. Now, it's a very slim case, this, but it was designed originally. Bear in mind, this came in 1990. So, A500 motherboard with the expansion slot. There's an A590. There's the original 20 meg hard disk on there, and a couple of floppy disks on the front. Now, what we did originally was we made this slot a bit higher so you can get an accelerator card underneath. And also, if you notice, there's a slot in the back, a hole at the back there. That was where you could put a flicker fixer, so if you had a video slot. So it's pretty good. I'm a fan on the front. But as some of you may know, I'm doing a new version about 20 years later, and I'm going to go through that now. So here's the. I'm going to give you a run through of the design as it is so far, to talk about, so you can see what where my head is with this design. And the problems I'm going to face, and the goods, the bads, and the things I'm having to miss. I am listening to everybody, even the people who don't like the project, because maybe they may be absolutely spot on, they may be completely wrong. I may be completely wrong here, but anyway, so I'm taking all feedback on board. And you can see this instantly. If you remember the original one quite some time ago, I had a single. The idea was there was going to be the DVD drive in the front here, was going to be just that, or a floppy disk drive. And then people were saying about, well, we want a floppy disk drive on the right hand side because that's the way it was, even though actually it wasn't. But people remember it that way. But I've got both. So you've got the floppy disk drive. Now the reason I could do this is because I swapped the power supply that was inside. I had a TFX power supply. I don't want to get technical with this, but I had a TFX power supply, which is long and skinny. But I swapped it for an SFX, and the reason for doing that was twofold. Firstly, because they can go up to 600 watt power supply, where the TFX can only do 300. But also they were different shapes, so I had a whole load of space that was cleared up, which meant I could put the floppy disk drive in there. So now hopefully it's going to please everybody. Well, you know, it would never please everybody, but hopefully will help. Now, it's very important to understand. Now, a lot of people come back and said about can we do this, can we do that on the front, and have this different kinds of configurations. Well, I want people to understand that one of the things I'm going to be doing, if you see this panel, hopefully you can see the mouse. So if you see my mouse cursor, so if you see from this point here, what I'll do is I'll draw a line here so you can actually see. Say from about that point there, okay. I've got the guides off. Okay, so from that point there, along this line, in fact, actually, let me just do. If I click on here, so right. Tell me what. So from this line here down, okay, that there, all the way along this line, up and across, that whole section is going to be a second part that plugs into the front. The reason for that is that I will then put this piece back in again as another injection molded part, so it'll look spot on, but you'll be able to take that out and then 3D print your own piece in here. Hopefully over time I'll also do different versions, but initially I'm just going to supply that plot there. So basically I'm cutting that chunk out, removing it and putting it back in again. So you're going to get the best of both worlds here, because you can then go in and you can modify, 3D print your own parts. So that's quite important, and hopefully that's going to allow for everyone to really go to town on this. At the bottom you'll also notice that I've got the a bay here, and it's got an SD card reader, but more importantly for me, for what I'm planning with this, it's got two USB 3 ports. If you've got obviously a PC motherboard or something that's got two USB ports, whatever they are, and an HDMI port I'm going to put in here, because I want to run the HDMI from the back to the front, mainly because I want to be able to run virtual reality systems and just plug into the front, because some people I'm hoping some people are going to buy this as a retro case for running Windows, hopefully Linux, but if you want VR, it tends to be mostly on Windows at the moment. But that's going to give people, so I'm hoping we get the retro side of the market, because very few people do cases now. So, but we'll see. I could be completely wrong. No one wants them, but there you go. Also, you can see here you've got the riser. I mean, now this front here is shrunk, so this main part from here, this whole block here is 100 high. So the case is now, if you ignore this bit at the bottom, which is the riser for the keyboard. So if I turn off the riser and the keyboard, the case itself is 100mm high, and it's 333 front to back, and it's 425 to 421 width. Okay, so it's actually a bit smaller, and it is meant to look like a 3000. Yes, people are saying you just ripped it off. Yeah, absolutely right. I have. Yeah, no, I don't have a problem with doing that. I don't have a problem with. I don't think it's ripping. I'm just taking the design cues basically, and just I want the new system to look like it. If you put it up against the 3000, it's a different shape. It's slimmer. It's you know, it is different, but the concept is a gorgeous shape, and it's always a beautiful shape. Now, I mean, to the point, to really, if you're really ripping it off, the sides. Excuse me. If I take the lid off, you can see the sides are flat. Now, originally they were curved. But to get it wider and not to make it too wide because of the 1200 that goes in here, I've done a little. I'm going to do a little trick so that the lid is going to give that kind of lip, so it gives that nice little shape, which I like that shape running to the back. I mean, you know, a lot of this is about design, and you know, to try and make it look nice. And some people said, "Oh, well, what do you know about design?" I've done designing cases. I mean, I didn't do the original 1500. I've admitted that. I mean, I've said that right from the beginning, but I have done cases before. Right, so if I swivel round now to the back, and this is at the moment is in Mega 500 mode. So you can see at the back here we've got the slots. Now there's going to be a little cover to cover this piece up, and this band around the sides is going to change. You can see there's actually nothing for it to screw into. It's not quite finished yet, so this isn't finished. You'll also notice in the middle there's a blanking plate here. Now that's cool. You can put anything in there. I mean, you can print, you 3D print your own plate for that. It will come with a metal plate, but probably going to come with a plate for fitting the Pi, because I think the Pi is a great little device. So actually, I haven't said that. No, probably a blanking plate, and then there'll be 3D prints that you'll be able to order to mount other devices. You'll see here I've got the two Zorro slots here. They're not really technically going to be two Zorro slots unless someone does the board. So you can see 3 fans here. Here's the power supply, obviously fitting on the back now, which is wider now. I've got 3 40mm fans, which tend to be a bit noisy, but I'm going to use a very silent fans. So hopefully they get, well, silent I think is a silly word, but they're called silent, but they're going to be hopefully quiet. I'm also going to put sound deadening material in the lid to stop it vibrating, because even though it's a strong steel case, I don't want too much noise, so I'm going to try and put sound deadening in there. Right, let's have a look at this in the 500 configuration. So if I take off the lid, let's turn this round. I might zoom out a little bit now. So you can see there's an A500 board in there. You'll be able to get your expansion card in underneath there. You see the Pi. Let me remove the Pi because you've all seen the Pi now. I mean, you don't have to have a Pi. It's just, I think it's kind of cool having it in there as an option. Now, you can see there's loads of there's loads of room in here. And you can see I've got a slot here. Now, this board's an interesting one because, in fact, let me turn some of these bits off the Zorro card. Let's take that card out. I'm going to be obviously doing this first board, which is this here. Now, you don't have to have this, but you won't come with the case. And as standard, it won't come with the power supply. It will just come with the metalwork. So the drive, you can see there's a drive tray here. It will come. Actually, the drive tray is not turned on. Let me turn that on. Drive tray. There you go. Come the drive tray. It comes with the front, the injection molded front, the base, the back, and obviously it comes with the basic case. That's so I can get it to the 150. The boards are going to be an interesting one because there's obviously issues with slots. Yes, I know I've got to get hold of slots. They are available. They're probably going to cost a bit, but also there's tons of potential here. So I will get a board made that plugs into the side and we'll have a Zorro 2 slot, or if you see this little slot here, that's a bus extender. So the bus will be extended to there. And then you'll be able to plug in an ACA 500 Plus or other cards of that type. that will fit in there. And of course little holders will have to be made, probably 3D printed, to hold them in place depending on the product. If you want to put in a card bay, card, sorry, let me get this card, right, okay, it's not a full length card, so it ends at the slot. So you've probably seen these, so like for example network cards, anything that basically the card ends at the end of the socket. It's very important to understand that you can't put a full length, otherwise I'd have to make this thing so big it'd be silly. But there's lots of cards available to do that, and some are just literally half height, half width, and they would go in there for IDE controllers, SCSI controllers, or whatever. But I see most people are going to actually, I'm hoping, are going to put in like an A1500 Plus or the other cards of the same type. There's 2 or 3 of these out now that are coming along. So that's the 500. Now, also you can see I'm going to be doing. I know there's a USB Wi-Fi keyboard port for these, but I will be doing a. If you remember on if you saw at the beginning of this, you saw the Checkmate 1500 had a separate keyboard case. And I'm going to do the same thing again, not as part of the kit. It's going to be extra because of these cables that have got to be made. They're going to be possibly quite expensive to make. And if you want to keep your Mega K keyboard, there will be a case to put it into. But I'm looking more for putting in some of the vintage designed USB keyboards, mechanical keyboards. So the other thing I've made is an optional now this power supply here, as I said, it's an SFX, and they're quite expensive. Well, that's not true. They range from about £27, but they go up to about 120, depending on what you want to put in it. So if you want to put a PC motherboard in here, they're going to get quite expensive if you want 600 watts. But that's the kind of price you pay for compact design. So you can see we've got a floppy disk in here. Now you can configure how you like, but put one of your Amiga 500 or your Amiga 1200 floppy disk drive. So that's a 500 layout. There's a lot more involved in this, obviously. But if I turn off the 500 stuff, and now we come up to the 1200. So let's swap in the 1200 bits. Okay, so now you can see we've got a new base. I've still got the slots on the back, which at the moment they're not going to do anything, and I may actually I don't know whether I'm going to keep them in there or remove them as yet, because someone's going to have to do the board, because obviously the bus expanders, they kind of come from this end, but if someone wants to help them do a board, I'm more than happy to keep those slots in, or I may do a new run of the backs, because the good thing is the back, this back plate here, this whole back plate, there's different versions of the back plate which you then screw into the chassis, so it's going to be configurable with 3 different types of back plates. This one, as you can see, for the 1200, let me turn off this the 1200 expansion board, because I've got in here, as you can see, I've got in here, now I had to make this whole thing wider to fit an accelerator card. I was originally not going to have the accelerator cards in there, and I was going to have them in there, but I was going to do it like this, flip them over upside down so they lay across here. But I decided, yeah, it's getting, that's useful, because oh god, he wants to back up. So you can see the power supply on there. So the power supply will go from here and then plug into that, which is obviously cool. It'll do the job. But that means expense, and I'm trying to keep these costs down for people. So I'm making, obviously now the power socket is still available here. Originally that was covered up, but I decided to leave it in there. It's pointless getting rid of it, because people might want to just build this gradually. So let's turn off expansion and put the accelerator back on. So there's the 12. Let's turn it back on again. There we go. So your accelerator card's in there. You can put everything you'd normally put in there. You've got loads of room for expansion. And the back port, if you don't put a pie in there, you'll be able to slot in, make your own plates for holding bits and pieces in it. But also, I mean, these here, if I shove in cost more, so you might be able to get some of these plates, and with cutouts, then you can use them. And this hole here, that's going to be covered with a plate, so don't worry about that. But there's lots of expansion there for the 1200. Now I'm also obviously doing the 600 is very similar to this. The other thing is the Pcmcia slot. There's going to be a slot in the side, because the lid's quite high up. There's going to be a slot in the side so you can plug in your PCMCI card, because otherwise if you're doing that, your Wi-Fi might not work because it's inside a steel chassis. so it might end up being like a Faraday cage and not work at all. It's going to be very well shielded, this thing. It's going to be crazy shielded. So that's the 1200, which I think is, you know, got most things covered. Oh, obviously with the 500 you can put a vampire in here on the 500. If you've got a 600 you can put the 600 with a vampire in it. There's lots of room in here. There'll be lots of power. The one thing I didn't, probably you may not have noticed, is on the card tray, the expansion board, there you go, there's that power socket again there. So if you want to run the power to it, this would be an optional extra because lots of people are going to be doing it different ways. Obviously that's for the 500 motherboard, not the 1200. Let's turn it off. So those two motherboards are going to be pretty well catered for. I'm also doing one for the Amiga 1000. Actually, no, I'm not going to recommend you put Amiga 1000 motherboard in this. I'm not going to say that at all because to me it's almost sacrilege. It comes with a great case. However, there are people who've got maybe, you know, have got a motherboard and want to use it. Okay, that's fine. But there's also the GBA 1000, the German board. So that's going to be going in a later video. You'll see. Hopefully, you're going to see that. Now, obviously, another big area for me, to be fair. Let me start turning some of this off. I'm keen to. It's not just about the Amiga market. It's the retro market, the people who used to have Amigas and went to PC. And for them, what I'm going to do is, you may well have already seen this. Let me just turn on the Mini ITX board. So you can have, right, sorry, bear with me a second, can't be right. Turn on the back panel, and let's turn on the GPU. Where's the GPU board? Okay, there we go. And the riser, so you can see this. Right, now, so what you can see is you've got Mini ITX board. Now this will actually take, this is actually going to take micro ATX as well. But we'll only use the first slot, and it's very, if you've got a micro ATX board you want to use it, that's fine. But this board here goes into PCIe slot. It's really for the GPU boards. Unless you make the board yourself, you're not going to be able to really use this. Then this is going to be a bit tricky. So make sure if you're going to use micro ATX, if you're going to buy a new one, buy Mini ITX, because they always have that slot there. The riser board goes in and it turns the GPU through 90 degrees. Okay, and then it blows the air out the back. So you've got a lot of air ventilation here. There's a whole lot of air ventilation, and of course the inlets are at the front. It's going to be able to suck an awful lot of air through. So there should be a really good through flow of air. Okay, and of course with this one, the Pi is going to sit. Let me just move that over there. The Pi is going to sit over here. Now let's just put that. No. Let me. Oh God. Sometimes. Right, there you go. So the Pi is going to go down there because a lot of people are actually asking for the Pi, putting the Pi in as the second board, and I think it's a great idea because I like the Pi. But that plate there is the same size plate as over on the 1200 and 500 as well, so that you can use the same tool. Same 3D printed parts that you make will fit in all the plates. And so you can see we've got here the riser board comes up, plugs into the GPU. Now it does mean, of course, there's a fair bit of space underneath the GPU. There's also room. This goes. You've actually got about 12.5 inches. But I mean, this is a 1080. I've got a 1080 ready to go in. So I'm going to use this as a VR system. And this is going to be really, really cool. Now, I am hoping that some of you may know about Alice. I'm hoping that we can get the same software, maybe, or something similar to work with this. So you could have a Linux box with Alice on it, and it will behave pretty much like an Amiga, unless you want to run some of the Linux software. I really think that's a fantastic way of getting it into the market, and then they hook into that with the what's the game system called? It'll come back to me in a second. The games platform for Linux and Windows. It's completely gone out of my head. You can tell I don't play, can't you? So the I think Linux and Amiga, it's a lovely little mix here. It's a great little match. So you can see, I think it's got, at the moment, I mean, I'm getting this slowly. You can see the lid on the front here. If I get the lid, there's going to be down the sides here, I'm going to put little runners, because if you notice on the lid, let me grab the lid, on the lid here, if I click on this, because you can see obviously at the back it's got that curve, and I wanted to keep that curve, that bump, just for styling reasons. But if I scroll this back, okay, and turn that round, there's a little indent there. Okay, that will slide into there, into the front of the case, and that will make this solid, because you're going to want to be able to put a big monitor. And this is going to be pretty strong steel. It's not going to be cheap, flimsy stuff. This is going to be well made case. I suppose the only weak point will be the injection molded front, but that's why I'm trying to do everything I can to make sure it's as stiff as possible, and and it works well. Let me turn that off now. Is there anything? Oh, the color, yeah. Now the colors. This is going to be. Now I've actually messed around with the color scheme. So the colors. Let me see if I can pick this color. Bear with me a second. D102. Oh, there you go. So this whole. Well, that's not done right, is it? So this whole case is going to be Albertine being black. Black or cream. Let's see. I have actually got that one. Let me just grab that. Let's see if we can drop that down as well. There we go. We drop that color down, and then you can see what this is going. I mean, I'm not doing it black, because if I do it black, it completely disappears. You can't actually see it. But as you can see, I think it's going to look really good in black. I mean, it really is going to look quite amazing in black. I think that's. I mean, I'm kind of torn now. I'm still torn about the Boing ball, whether I leave the Boing ball on. I think legally I'm okay, and it's all. But I want people in the PC world to actually look at this as a retro-inspired case for modern computer systems, and that's the way I'm looking at it. So that's how I can, and it means that obviously then I can get the better prices for everything if I can sell more of them. And I'd like to do more. I'd like to do, I'd like to do a tower, a nice new tower as well. I mean, I'd like to really go to town with this whole casing system. But, reality is, I have to get the, we've got to make money out of this first one. I think this first one's got a reasonable shot. So you can see that. And if I put the riser again. Now, as you can see, the riser is, it's optional. You don't have to have the riser. I've got the white keys on that, but you don't have to have the riser, but I actually quite like the idea of it. It will lift. It's going to lift it up. Now that was why I wanted to get the main case. That other 10mm did make a difference. So if you put the riser on it and put a monitor, stick a monitor on top of this. Let me get a TFT monitor on top of this, and then zoom out. There you go. So I mean, it actually doesn't look too bad. I don't think that looks too bad at all. Is the monitor, we got the same. Let's turn the TFT off and put that. Oh yeah, that's the wrong color really, isn't it? But anyway, but yeah, so I think hopefully you like this. Hopefully I'm not wasting my time, but I actually do think this has got some potential. And so anyway, so there's an update. I will come back with more information later on. I've still got some work to do, and we've still got a fair bit of work to do on this. Now I'm trying to remember what the work is I've got to do, but I have still got some work to do on it. I've got to do the buttons and so on, and then I've got some real testing to make sure all my sizes are accurate. If you're wondering why there's a big hole there, people who build PCs know that when you buy a motherboard, it comes with a blanking plate with these cutouts, and that will go into there, so you get this metal shielding. That's why that's blank, whereas the 500s are not. So most people would probably know that, but if you've not built your own machine before, you may not realize that. So let's go back to the 500. Let's turn off the GPU, let's turn off the riser, let's go back to the 500. Here we go. So 500 motherboard in. I think this is going to be a really nice little case. But now for me, the thing is, it's got to be quality. The molding's the biggest challenge for me, because it's one thing I haven't done. I mean, I've been involved in manufacturing the metalwork, but I've never done. I've done lots of 3D printing, so I've done all that, but I haven't done an injection molded one. So that's going to be where a lot of work. And I've got a couple of companies in the UK I'm going to go and see, and we're really going to go to town, because it's got to be the same quality as the 3000 front. I just want it. That's really crucial to me. Also with this, because of the whole thing of, I think with black, I'm going to go the RGB lighting as well. So you could put strips in there and light it accordingly. And of course the keyboard, if you get a modern keyboard, then you can have modern RGB lighting. So this thing's going to be, I think, absolutely gorgeous. But of course, you know, the proof of the pudding and all that. But anyway, so hopefully you like that. Hopefully, you know, you think I'm on the right track. If you've got more suggestions, by all means come back. Now really important is, once I finish the design completely, if you buy a case, you can request a copy of the drawings as well. I know I'm possibly taking a little bit of a gamble on this, but I'm going to let people have the designs. And the reason for doing this is because if you've got the original designs, you can then 3D print. You've got completely accurate measurements if you want to 3D print something to go inside this. So I think it's going to be useful. Now, I don't necessarily think someone's going to go along, copy this, rip it off, because it's such an expensive thing to make the front. That front's very expensive. So but you know, I'm going to take a gamble on that. But I think in the long term it will be a really useful thing to people to be able to have the complete design and be able to make their own 3D parts internally, and even, you know, potentially, if from the beginning, at some point I will release the drawings. So if especially for a company wants to make boards, if you want to help me make boards, I think you know, there's going to be a market here. I mean, this board here, technically now, I could put a third slot in here. It might be a bit tricky, to be fair, but I think we can get a third slot in there. So, but it would need this board to have bus arbitration. I can't do that, but there are companies out there made them for the 1200. Unfortunately, I don't have James anymore, so James could have done that for me, but I don't have James anymore. So if someone out there was interested and wants to do this board, let me hide that. If you're interested in designing a board that plugs in the side and gives 3 Zorro 2 slots with bus arbitration, just get in touch, because that would be really useful. You might want to do one for the 1200 and work something out. I think the reality is, in fact, let me just, because I want all this covered, and some of this people may not necessarily. Let's hide the Raspberry Pi. I think it's worth talking about this. Let's get the 1200 up again. 1200 motherboard and the bay and the expansion. So let me turn that around. So you've got in there, you have an accelerator. Now it's gonna be a problem if you want to put the expander board and the accelerator. We're gonna have to work something out, because it's very tight, this case. But if before I go to manufacture, someone says, look, we can do this, we need 5 more mil, I could expand the case a little bit more. But at the moment I'm thinking people aren't going to do this. But in theory you can make a bus board, come across here, and you know, use these slots to give the a couple, say 2 or 3 Zorro 3 slots. So you know, by all means get in touch with me about that. But at the moment I think it's pretty much covered. And I've done a survey, and you'd be surprised, next to none want want slots for the 1200. Most of them happy with the way it is. So you know, out of about 150 different kinds of configurations, there was 4 for 1200 PCI slots. I'm not sure if there's actually a market for that. Anyway, I hope that's that you're impressed with that. Hopefully you like the work so far. If you don't, sorry, but you know, I'm building this because I like it as well. But I am honestly, as you can see, I am listening to everything people say. I'm taking everything on board. You can tell by the floppy disk drive. There wasn't a floppy disk drive there before. And that whole front panel. Remember, this whole front panel is literally this little slot. In fact, if let me just, I'll explode this. Let me just show you. So basically, between, yeah, so basically that area there, yeah, so from there to there, that whole block will come out, and then it will allow you to just slot in your own custom design, and you can do what you like with it. I'd like you to keep, you know, I'm obviously going to follow in line with the angle design. Other thing, there will be LEDs that go in here. They're going to be proper LEDs in there, so you will have your power LEDs and so on. And again, I wanted this RGB lighting, but I think I've waffled enough now, so hopefully you like that. Well, you know, I'll be in touch soon and give you an update as I move along. Thanks very much.